tough to follow a comedian. Oh my God. You could have toned down the funny just a little bit. So Alion is correct. So my name is Kelly Brogdon Geyer. I am originally from the US, from Los Angeles. Then I lived in San Diego for 10 years, then Connecticut for 10 years. I know it's amazing because I look 25 at most. And I have lived here in Austria since 2017. I do live in a town about an hour northeast of here called Sistersdorf. It's a town of 3,000 people, and I actually live in a village nearby with about 300 people. So when I first arrived here in Austria, I really thought I was starting the dream life. I thought about, alpine hikes, spending my days in a thermal spa, and Christmas markets. And I had this image of these little children in matching outfits, yodeling through the hills, just like the Von Trapp family from The Sound of Music. It wasn't long after I got here that I realized nobody here's actually seen The Sound of Music. And this was all a dream, and none of the children had matching outfits. My friends that I left behind back home would make comments about how lucky I am to be living this amazing life, and I was. But what they didn't see is what happens in between these social media posts. There's a lot of loneliness, isolation, and for me, the slow unraveling of the person who I used to be. Unlike some of the speakers yesterday or today who didn't really want to come to Austria, I did want to come. It was shortly after the election in 2016, and I thought, it's a good time to get out of here. Super. I had married my Austrian husband while we were in the US. We had my son, Maximilian. And he was 2.5 years old, and we thought, it's probably not going to get better here anytime soon, so let's go. Moving from being a city girl, then getting into the countryside where there are Hirschkäfers. If you haven't seen a picture of those, Google that. Nobody warned me about them before I got here. That's fun when you're hanging the laundry outside and there's one of those on your bras, so not great. I landed here full of excitement and hope, and arriving in a new country, having a new beginning. In the US, I had built a successful career, a strong network of close friends, even after moving several times, and I had what I thought was a strong sense of purpose. So naturally, I assumed I would do it again here. How hard could it be? I will make friends with Austrians. I will get another job quite easily because I've always been able to do it in the US. Well, suddenly everything was difficult. Going to the doctor became a game of charades and hand gestures, and then coming home to my husband and him saying, how did it go? And I said, I've got some medicine. I'm either going to get better or he might have told me I'm dying. I'm not really sure. Let's see. Buying groceries was a bit risky without knowing the language, and so I would have to walk through Bila or Spar with my phone and translating everything and not knowing where everything is and having very limited choices with what to buy compared to the US, these grocery stores the size of small cities. I finally understood how stupid the American system of measurement was, but I still wasn't really figured out with the metric system and how that was going to go. Now I like it. It's easier, and I refuse to speak in miles and inches and feet, and it's nonsense. But that difference in measurement, I bought a casserole dish off Amazon, thinking this beautiful red casserole dish, I'm going to make my family's delicious meal tonight for dinner, and when it arrived, and it was about this big, because I had not noticed it was really like a salsa dip bowl. I don't know what. We still have it as a joke, and it's up on a shelf as a reminder. I really thought I would learn German just as easily as I had learned Spanish when I was a lot younger. But obviously, growing up in Los Angeles, you hear Spanish quite a lot, and so it is very easy to learn. Most of our words actually come from Spanish. Our city names, Los Angeles, is Spanish, so it was really easy to learn. Plus, I was much younger. I moved here when I was in my mid-30s. And While learning German, I'm just slightly embarrassed to let you know how often and how many times I said, "Ich bin heiß," when I was learning, before anyone mentioned to me, it's actually "Mir ist heiß." And I turned to my husband, "What the fuck?" You didn't want to give me a heads up? He said, "Kelly, I think this is very cute." We all get laugh at you. So. Yeah, thanks for that. Back in the US, I was confident, competent. I knew how to do everything. I was independent. I didn't need no man. So suddenly living in Austria, it was like being a child living in a world that was built for adults. Not even 1 year after moving, I hit a breaking point. I didn't have a network here to help me get a job, which meant it was impossible. I was living in an area of Austria where no one speaks English, and you cannot get a job speaking English. And my German is still terrible, even after all of this time. I had not made a single friend. People in my village are extremely friendly and nice to me, but no one wants to be your friend, not in the type of friendship that I'm used to. My German was still terrible, still is. I missed all of my family and my friends and the warmth of familiar conversations in my native language. Every day I felt like I was walking through a fog and I couldn't see my way out. On the morning of June 22nd, 2018, I woke up and decided I can't keep going like this anymore. Enough is enough. I sat on the edge of my bed. My husband had gone to work already, and I cried like ugly cry, like sobbing, tears, ugly crying. And I decided I was going to get up, take a shower, drop my son off at school, at kindergarten, and I had a choice to either take my life or get some help. To this day, I have no idea what got me in the car to the hospital, thankfully. I went to the hospital in Hollebrunn, and imagine I'm walking into the hospital, still ugly crying, translating on my phone to then walk up to the woman who was sitting as a triage nurse at the reception and trying to explain to her in German, I need some help and I don't want to live anymore. I promise it's going to get better from here. It's really tough to follow this. She was so kind to me, and she told me, Schatzi, sit here, in her best English. And so I took a seat. She called the therapist, who, thank God, spoke English. And that one decision that I made that day, thankfully the right decision for me, that small act of surrender is what saved my life. I stayed in the hospital for several days. I got the medication I needed to get my head straight again. And for the first time in months, I felt at least a tiny flicker of hope, that there was somebody there in the hospital that was compassionate towards me, that there was a doctor that understood and said, of course it's hard for you to be here. It's hard to move to another country. It's normal to feel sad. And I realized it wasn't strength that brought me to this decision and brought me into the hospital where I could get some help. It was desperation. But sometimes that's where healing begins. From that day forward, I started to rebuild. Slowly, really slowly, but consistently. Therapy became my lifeline. I could not find a therapist where I live who speaks English or that had any openings. So I use InstaHelp online, and I found a therapist who speaks English. I can do it in the comfort of my own home with my yoga pants on. And I learned that healing isn't always linear. It wasn't that from that day on everything was magical and puppy kisses and rainbows. Some days I took 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Other days I took no steps forward and 10 steps back. But eventually, step by step, I started to see progress. At least I was moving. And I was able to see through the fog, just a little bit. By August of 2018, I got my first job here in Austria. And it wasn't just about earning money. It was about getting my dignity back and getting my confidence back. Over time, I stopped trying to fit into the version of Austria that I thought I was moving to, and I started creating my own version of home for myself. I let go of making friends, of the idea of making friends with Austrians, and now have plenty of friends who are expats. And eventually I did make some Austrian friends. I started showing up for my community, not only as a guest, but as a contributor. I go to our Feuerwehrfest at Feuerwehr parties, and we have a ball every year in January, even in my little village with 300 people. We have our Maibaumfest, but I've also started sharing parts of me with them. Every year, my husband and I throw a huge Halloween party for the entire village and the town. We were even in the newspaper a few years ago. It's the American throwing the Halloween party in the Weinviertel. Each November, I make a huge Thanksgiving American meal, home-cooked, with the guest list ranging from 15 to 25 people. This year it's 25 already, so sorry, no invitations at the moment. It's next weekend, and it'll be in the wine cellar in a town next to us, where I'm often found on Friday nights having a glass of wine with my new local friends and my community with them. I'm the Rechnungsprüfer for their Verein. And we all have a laugh, our new tradition, because I didn't realize it was something funny, that we all say Prost Schatzi, and now it's this big joke everywhere around where we are. Most of all, I learned that belonging isn't given to you. You have to build it, one act at a time. Today, I mentor others who are walking in the same path, people who came to a new country full of hope and ended up feeling lost, invisible, or alone. I tell them it's okay to struggle, you're not broken, you're being remade. And this is something I needed to learn myself. So many people move to a new country thinking, I'm starting something new. And while that's partly true, for me, it meant I had to completely unlearn everything I had known about myself. I'm completely a different person than I was before I got here in 2017. I mean, I have a whole new personality when I speak German. When I'm American, I'm loud and I'm try to be funny and I speak, quite animated. And when I'm speaking German, I go, Entschuldigung Sie bitte. A whole new person. And this is something that I don't think gets enough attention, and that research shows that more than half of all expats experience depression and anxiety within their first year of moving abroad. We just don't talk about it because we see on Instagram and for the old people Facebook, like me, you see these fabulous pictures of people living their best life. But there are times in between these photos that people do struggle. And if you are one of those people like me, get the help that you need. For me, it was therapy. I needed some medication for the short term. And now, I can feel grateful and that I'm blessed to be here. And I never plan on moving back to the US. I was able to build my home here in Austria with my family. It wasn't always easy. I mean, there was a time where my son and I spoke 2 different languages. That he was learning German much faster than me, obviously, and we would sit at the table and I would say, how was your day at kindergarten? He would look at my husband and say it in German. But slowly, he started learning more English, I started learning more German, so now we speak some mix in between, where he said, Mami, kann ich bitte haben some sweets? So we have some version of our own language that we can both speak. The truth is, starting over in another country means starting over with yourself. Let go of every single thing that you think you know about the world and about yourself and start over. I had to recognize that there were things I didn't know how to do, pumping gas. In the US, you have to pay first. I went to my little village to try and get gas in my car, and I walked in. I said, I would like to get gas in my car. And she's like, yeah. Go ahead. And so acknowledge that you're going to be a little bit silly sometimes. You're going to say funny things, and give yourself a little bit of grace. And let go of the identity that worked back home and create a version of you that's becoming who you are now. Moving the comfort of my home country meant that I was able to follow my passion, find my passion about what I really enjoy doing. In the US, I thought it was climbing the ladder, keep moving up. And then I kept going up and I realized I hate these people. They're the worst. They're the absolute freaking worst. I don't want to work with them. Now I spend my days facilitating cross-cultural collaboration workshops for organizations and teams that have a multicultural environment. I do workshops for expats, and I just did one on Sunday for some friends of mine. Their son and his friend are moving to the US for a few months to study. So I gave them a little heads up that I wish I would have had before I moved here. And also mentoring expats, because I've been there, I know how hard it is, and I know what kind of grace you need to give yourself and understanding and patience. So this is my story. Thanks very much.